The somewhat recent release of the Switch Lite more or less put the final nail in the coffin for the Nintendo 3DS, and it seems as though people are quite happy about it. Very understandable, considering now that Nintendo can put all of their resources into making games for just a single platform, when they were historically pouring into two at the same time, generally with one being much more successful than the other. However, some people loved the 3DS, and even still play it to this date, despite also owning a Switch. Myself included. The 3DS is where I've done the majority of my gaming throughout my life, across a total of 5 separate systems, including this one. I'm super bummed, although completely understanding, that this is no longer being supported. Let me tell you why. By the way, I'm not going to go in depth with any of the games that I talk about, as a lot of those I want to cover in their own separate videos. I think the best point to start off with is the 3D effect. Most people brush this off as a gimmick with little value, and just leave the slider down or just use one of the 2DS models. As someone who's spent the majority of their time with the slider cranked to the max, it actually has its albeit subtle merits. Even though many models of 3DS have slightly washed out TN screens, turning the 3D on actually helps to make the overall image not only more vivid, but much more clear for people like myself. Up until a handful of years ago, I had a hard time playing regular games on other consoles, as I legitimately had issues judging where things were not only in 3D space, but in 2D space as well. I had to go out of my way to get a sense of how movement worked in 3D games, and background elements in 2D games tended to blend in a bit with the actual gameplay layer. My specific issues were addressed with 2 equally specific titles, Super Mario 3D Land and New Super Mario Bros. 2. Navigating a 3D space while having a natural sense of where things were meant I could more intuitively navigate the obstacle courses and the blur that the 3D effect gave to New Super 2's backgrounds, while most people criticized, I viewed as a godsend. I could see where everything pertaining to gameplay was, while the background was in the sweet spot out of the way of gameplay while still being visible. It's almost like the game's camera widened its aperture. Hell, for the longest time I couldn't and still can't play Smash 3DS or Mario Kart 7 competently in 2D for similar reasons. The 3D helps that much. Yeah, the effect may not be that great for some people on the older hardware, and the way that some people's brains and eyes just can't process the effect at all, but the super stable 3D on the new branded hardware is incredible, to the point where I just always have the slider up without a second thought of where I need to position my head. Recently, I've been playing Luigi's Mansion on Switch, and the lack of any stereoscopic 3D effect messes with me at times, as I had the slider cranked when playing LM2 back in the day. As for getting headaches from the effect, I certainly felt that the first few days I had the system back in 2011, but these days I can play in 3D for hours without any issue. One of my favorite aspects of the system were all of the unique and legitimately useful features baked into the OS. The activity log puts to shame using the Switch Parental Controls app to see your gameplay activity. You can see not just exactly how long you've played a game, but how many times you've opened said game, your average playtime, as well as the first and most recent dates you've played the game. Again, this is leagues better than using the Switch Parental Controls app, and especially the play activity on your user page, considering they give you much more exact measurements as opposed to rough estimates. My absolute favorite feature of the 3DS was StreetPass. You'd put your system in sleep mode with the wireless on, and take it with you as you go out of the house. If your system senses another 3DS in close proximity, both of them will exchange basic game information, which is used in various games and apps, such as time trial ghost data for Mario Kart 7. For whatever reason, everyone I've tagged with New Soup 2 and MK7 were complete garbo. They were probably just young kids, but this incentivized younger me to take my system with me everywhere, seeing as more and more of my friends at school were getting 3DSs. But it also made me actually excited to go grocery shopping with my mom, because I'd get some more puzzle pieces and tokens to beat in Street Smash when we were out and about. My mom originally didn't like the thought of info about me getting shared with random strangers, so she restricted that feature when I was setting up my system, but she told me the pin she used with the thought that I wouldn't adjust things. In reality, I knew the feature was harmless, and just deleted the parental controls that were set later that day. It's not like I wouldn't have been able to remove the parental controls without the pin, as that had been cracked for a while now, so oops, sorry that you're just now finding about this, Mom. Related to StreetPass was the fact that the 3DS had a built-in gyroscope and accelerometer, and one of the larger uses of this was that you could use your 3DS as a pedometer. Just like StreetPass, have your system in sleep mode and in your pocket or bag. Every 100 steps you took earns you 1 play coin, which were used in different games for different purposes. You could earn up to 10 coins a day, and your wallet maxes out at 300. Both of these features made me carry my system basically everywhere I went, which meant I also had access to my games, meaning I played the system much longer than most people I've ever known. Also, if you load your system's SD card with MP3s and go to the 3DS Sound app, you could use your system like an iPod. I really got a lot of use out of that in middle school and high school in study hall, seeing as I didn't have a smartphone back then. Basically, I would listen to music while I got my work done, got in a game of Smash or two while I wait for my mom to pick me up, then play more Smash when I got home. It was great. All that use throughout the day certainly would drain the battery life, especially on the OG model. Luckily, Nintendo thought this through and included a charging cradle with the OG system. The idea with this is that you would leave your system in it in sleep mode with wireless turned on, and it can download game data, system updates, whole games themselves once those were offered through the eShop starting with and your battery would get topped off all at the same time, either when you weren't using your system or overnight. This was so convenient, so I just did it all the time. And even today, when nothing really important gets sent out through StreetPass anymore, it's always plugged in and connected to the internet when I'm at my desk out of force of habit. But also because I still play the thing to this day despite... yeah. Speaking of this, the 3DS has charm in spades compared to the Switch. Mostly all the recognizable tunes in the different apps and even the home menu. The fact that the 3DS has themes when we still only have the black and white ones on Switch really tells you we aren't in the perfect timeline. Also, you can blow into the mic to make the home menu dioramas spin, and I love it. And yeah, I especially remember all the models that I've used, the only one in the lineup I've never used as my personal system being the standard new 3DS. I had the OG Cosmo Black from Christmas 2011 to September of 2014. This is easily the model I got the most use out of, to the point where the rubber on my circle pad started to rip and eventually fell off. I then got the 3DS XL, because I was too impatient to wait a few more months for the new models. This basically became my Smash machine for a solid 2 years, well, more like 1 year and 50 weeks. As within the first month of me having it, the included stylus had torn the touchscreen, leaving a nice gash in the middle of things. I was able to send it into Nintendo and get it repaired for no problem, and at no cost, and since then, I've gotten screen protectors on all of my devices. I also got the NFC reader so I could actually use Amiibo on the older hardware, and a year later, I actually traded in my OG 3DS and some games I wasn't playing for a 2DS. This wasn't meant to replace my XL, but rather complement it. I loved the form factor of it, even though it made carrying it around more of a physical challenge. I put up with it because it was more fun to use. In August 2017, I made a big leap to the new 2DS XL. I wanted the new branded hardware features, but I was starting to fall out of the 3D effect at that point. This was such a great system, although my unit at least had a very noticeable TN screen. That and a lack of 3D were getting to me so much that even after making the Switch, I really wanted the new 3DS XL. Amazon happened to have them for the same price as the new 2DS XL during Black Friday of 2018, so I caved. If you're looking at getting any 3DS, I'd just say go all out for this one. Just know it doesn't come with a charger, which aren't that expensive anyways. Plus, this SNES design is so cool, especially the coloring of the buttons. The 3DS was such a big part of my life, especially back in middle and high school. Hell, it's kind of why I made this YouTube channel in the first place. Playing 3DS games brings me back to those simpler times of being in middle and high school, even if they were just a handful of years ago. When I got my first system, I was just starting middle school. Now, I moved out of the house for college for the next 2 years studying video production, in part thanks to this thing. That's why I'm sad to see this go. It had such a great life, but I'm understanding that it really makes no sense for Nintendo to support this platform anymore. Some may say the 3DS is dead, but all of my memories with it will still live on in my heart. That doesn't mean I'm gonna stop playing it anytime soon. Hell, there are still some games I want to get for it. But in the meantime, let's boot up a game I haven't played for a while. Actually, this should be its own video.